Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 with another random Netflix review. And really only doing this because I did the first one, so why not? Sinister 2. I know you can't really see that, but Sinister 2. And this review is probably going to be similar to Splatter. It's a much better movie than Splatter, but because as far as I don't know if it's going to be a review or a rant. Like, this movie is just so eh that I don't really have any feelings one way or the other. Um, there, there are some good notes. There are some flaws, but it didn't make near as much money as the first one. It came out in 2015, 3 years after the first film. $10 million budget, made 54. Um, which how much did the first one make? Not as astronomical as I thought, but 3 million made 87, almost 88. Um, the only cast member that's returning is James Ransone, who played Deputy So and So. He he's returning as Deputy So and So, but now he's left the force. He's a private investigator who's looking into the same crimes that Ethan Hawke was in the previous film. I will say the score was nice, done by Tom and Andy, who did the first film. They also did the Hills Have Eyes remake. Which in this one, because it wasn't like how much time has passed since the first film? Because here, it's not so much Deputy So and So trying to solve what's going on the way Ethan Hawke was. It focuses more on the kids of the family and their influence and how they get from, being the normal kid to being the killer of the family. Because you have these two kids, Zach and Dylan, which Dylan's played by Robert Daniel Sloan, and Zach is played by D'Artagnan Sloan. Okay, so they're brothers in real life, I guess. Their mother is Shannon Sossaman, who I've seen her before. Don't really. She was in One Missed Call, the American remake, which sucked. Nothing else. Bunch of TV credits. But anyway, they're. It's not like they moved. They're kind of in hiding because of a severely abusive father and husband. So they go to this farmhouse, which takes place near Springfield, Illinois, and or Springfield, Ohio. I think every state has a Springfield. It's somewhere in that. I think it's Illinois. And there's this farmhouse that has this barn that's pretty much a church, and the house is listed for sale, but they're pretty much squatting because they're in hiding. Like the first time we see them, they're at this grocery store, and there's this guy following them, taking pictures of them, and then he makes a call like, yeah, that's her. Then we find out what's going on with that. Deputy So-and-so, he calls about the house because it's still listed as for sale. He goes there to burn it down because he knows the cycle of murders from the previous film is whenever a family moves into the house where the most recent murder takes place and then they move out to a different house, that's where the next murder will be. And there was a Sinister related family murder at this church, at this farmhouse. But, you know, again, it wasn't an official move. They're not supposed to be there. So since he goes there to burn it, you know, he's trying to burn down the houses so no one else can move there, hoping to break the cycle. That's as much as he knows. And it really follows because we see all these ghostly children. Dylan is the younger brother, I believe. He is the younger brother. Because that's what they establish. It's the younger child of each family. And, or at least that's what I got at the last film. So these ghostly children take him out to the barn or down to the cellar, and they each show him their home video, their snuff film, which I will say looks just as good as it did the first film. They really got the 8mm look, the grit and the grain. I like that. They did find new systematic ways to kill these families. I will say there's a lot of CGI. Some of them are way more improbable. Like in the last film, it was, how did a small child get all the family members, even full-grown father and mother, all tied up to the tree to be hanged? How did the child, you know, make the car all chained up and everyone so they can't get out? Here, there's even more unbelievable ones. Like, the first one we see is called Fishing Trip. They don't have years anymore, which I thought was kind of weird. It's like they don't want to show, like, oh, there's all these other tapes that conveniently weren't in the box when Ethan Hawke had it. Meaning it's been since, but it's really, like, it looks like it might take place in real time, like 3 years since. Which, holy shit. But we see, like, 4 other tapes. Like, Fishing Trip, it's, like, out in the bayou, and this small boy was able to hang, like, 4 family members by their feet over this swamp so a CGI alligator can eat all of them. And yeah, the CGI it's obvious. It's not in like a way where there's practical to, you know, help even it out, or the effect was done well enough that CGI doesn't really matter. The CGI is obvious. The only one that was really probable was one that said Christmas morning, where there's just holes dug. The families are like in their pajamas or like their underwear, like tank top, and they're buried with up to their necks with snow. And I thought decent, like, you know, putting frostbite around them. The one really creepy scene, the camera's looking at each family member, and they're all like frozen solid, and the mother's eyes just like look over at the camera. I was like, okay, tell it's CGI, but I thought it was creepy. And that's one of the things that this movie's been criticized for, and I criticize it as well. It's like, it's heavily reliant on jump scares. Like someone turning around and one of the ghostly kids is standing there. Or Bagul does that thing where he like leans into the shot. And apparently Bagul is like now going after people that is onto him, because Vincent D'Onofrio's character, the professor from the previous film, he's gone missing, but he's left Deputy so-and-so some stuff. Like, supposedly over in Norway, instead of like a Super 8 film, it's like a ham radio that records the murders. And there was a couple things that I thought worked well, like when we see Deputy So and So, which James Ransone did a good job. I liked him in the previous film. He does play the adult Eddie in It Chapter 2. He did a great job in this film. His acting was well done. We see him at the hotel, and the mom knows that he's not involved with the husband and tracking her down, so she lets him do his thing. He's at the hotel and he's at looking at his laptop, and it looks like Bagul is approaching him from behind. But when he turns around, when the deputy turns around to look, Bagul, like, we can tell he's actually on the screen. He's approaching him from the screen. So I liked that. When he's checking out the church, he'll have his flashlight and he'll like point it in a direction, move it, and we'll see like a shadowy apparition of a kid. Goes back, moves it away, then there's two, then there's three. And basically, Dylan is sort of this scared kid who doesn't like watching these snuff films. But Zach can also see these kids, and he's getting pissed that the kids aren't interested in him. They say he's not strong or smart enough. So he beats up Dylan, and eventually he's chosen to be the one to make the film. And the scariest part of this movie, I thought, because I've always been a mama's boy. I still am. I'm not afraid to admit it. He beats up his brother. So then the mother's like, cleaning him up. And she was like, why did you do that? Like, apologize to him. And he says, like, fuck you, Dylan. And then he looks at her and he's like, fuck you too. Doesn't end there. He says, fuck you too, cunt. I think my heart skipped a beat when I saw that, because I was just like, he just called his mother a what? And of course she's like frozen, because he's like, oh, what are you gonna do? Hit me like dad? That made her back off. And the whole reason how she came to trust Deputy So-and-so is because the husband does find her, shows up with state troopers and say the kids have to come with me. And the deputy says, well, technically by law, it's the sheriff that has to do that. And, pretty much calls them on their bluff, so they have to leave. But eventually, he's not around because he's with this other professor talking about ham radios. When the husband comes back with a court order with the sheriffs, it says either I take my boys or you come with me. So they go, and we see how abusive he is. Like, he's trying to force feed Dylan because he won't eat. And then this movie takes this harsh turn because, they lived in that church farmhouse. So then when they go to live with the dad, that's their move. And another one of the snuff films, the one that takes place in the church, is the family's drugged and tied down sort of in a pentagram formation. And they have like these church bowls put over their stomachs with a rat underneath with a hot coal on top of it. Because when rats feel heat, they burrow. And it would have been a nice effect just to see the blood come out, which is CGI. Yeah, CGI blood pooling. You can't use practical blood for just pooling. But we see the rat come out someone's side. CGI rat. And the thing I don't like it when horror movies do this. It opens with something and then it says, like 2 weeks later, and then we build up to it. It's not that it did that. It opened up with the snuff film of these 3 scarecrows that are family members with, trails of gasoline to light them up. That's what we're building to. eventually Zach is chosen, and he does his film that way. And he has a hand scythe for good measure, I guess. But, and yeah, I have to say, it feels more like a Children of the Corn film. Because you have the zombified looking children, like, standing in the corn telling him, like, finish your film. He has a hand scythe wearing a plaid shirt. And, you know, with the ham radio, that's when the deputy realizes that Bagul gets to the children, and then that's how the murders happen. Like, that's how it works. And, of course, he gets his ass kicked by the husband for trying to warn them, because he's kind of like a murder set pieces kind of looking guy, douchebag. But Dylan takes the mom's phone, texts him, and then he goes to the rescue. Which I thought this was ballsy. He gets to the house and he sees the flame way off in the cornfield. The dad gets burned conveniently, like, because there's enough time, because the lighter won't light when he goes to do his brother. And this Ford Explorer just comes right through the corn, hits the fucking kid with the camera. Doesn't kill him, but I was so surprised they did that. And I was thinking, like, you're a private investigator, former police deputy, you don't have a pistol? How do you not have a pistol? Don't all private investigators carry some sort of pistol? I mean, he has a knife to cut them down, but... And pretty much how this gets resolved is, and I did like this. This made more sense to me than the ending of the first one, which I always hated. How Bagul can pick up a physical child and just walk right into the screen and be in the film. Here, the ghostly children are going through the house because they get into the farmhouse. They're trying to hide from this little kid with a hand scythe and a camera. Camera in one hand, hand scythe in the other. And he's a young kid. He should be that hard to take down. But the ghost kids are going around each room and, like, telling him where they are, because the other ones can't. Well, the deputy, the mom can't see them, but Dylan can because he's already interacted with them. So, and they're trying to flush them out. Like, when the deputy hides under a desk in the study, they're throwing books all over the place. So it looks like a poltergeist is going on. So it's like, oh, I thought that made more sense. Like, oh, okay, don't make it like now they can see the kids. It just looks more like Paranormal Activity. The phenomena, not the films. It pretty much, it all ends because Deputy So-and-so knocks the camera out of Zach's hand with a golf club and breaks it. So he can't finish the film. This pisses off Bagul, and when he comes up, all the other kids get all scared. Puts his hand on Zach's shoulder, and he starts to get all, like, the zombified look. And then they walk into the screen, and I guess he's pissed because then it just spontaneously bursts into flames. So the mother has to deal with that. And then they leave, and you get the same jump scare where, I will say, the deputy did get, like, from his ring finger down, like, cut off from the hand scythe. He's getting all his shit from his hotel room, and then all of a sudden, the ham radio's there. And then that's when Bagul does his little popping into frame. I don't really think this film was needed. It really... I mean, at least it wasn't someone else figuring out something's wrong and trying to solve it. You know, it actually worked with the twist of the last one, which said, oh, okay, the kids are influenced. The kids are the ones doing these killings. So it showed how they get influenced. So, okay, it worked with the twist. It told that story. I did like, you know, that James Ransone came back as Deputy So and So because I liked his character from the last one. He was a way more likable lead than Ethan Hawke in the last film. Uh, but it really felt like, because the snuff films in the previous film were one of the things that got praised that people liked. So they're like, oh, we can't just show the same ones. We gotta give the audiences and fans new ones. But it's like, how much time has gone by to have all these new films? Like, for the families to move around that much and all this to happen. To get, I mean, the church one, the fishing one, uh, Christmas, and then the Scarecrow one. So, a total of 4 new films. I want to say there was another one, but I don't remember. And it's still paused on the ending. I just got done watching it. And that's why there's no dates, there's no years on these reels. Because it felt like they were just kind of pulling them out of their ass. I say, oh yeah, there's just a bunch of new ones. That's how it is. And they didn't come out and say how much time had passed, but... So it felt like they were really just trying to throw something new together without having all the kinks worked out, all the plot holes. But the movie is just so there that I'm kind of indifferent. There's things I liked and there's things I didn't like, so I guess it's an equal review and rant, but... And I guess as far as the future, some sort of crossover between Insidious and Sinister, which I hope doesn't happen. If anything, mix Insidious and The Conjuring, because those are 2 good films. If they were going to call it In Sinister. But yeah. And that's sort of Jason Blum's idea, which of course it is. And yeah, this film got ravished. I mean, it has a 16 on Rotten Tomatoes. I wouldn't say it's that bad. It's pretty, more or less the same as the first one. Just, you know, get lots of jump scares and nothing in between these interesting, good-looking 8mm snuff films, just told through a different perspective. Instead of someone trying to solve it, it's the kids being influenced. So at least they did that. They didn't really repeat themselves. But yeah, that's Sinister 2. Just kind of... It's very forgettable already, so... Yeah, I guess it's more bad than good. It's just really forgettable. It's incredibly fast paced. I mean, it's 97 minutes, but it went by like that. Like, the pacing somehow it went by at a very good speed. One of the best things I can say about it. But yeah, that's Sinister 2. Thank you for watching.